The Morris-Commercial LC5 from 1950 may not stop you in your tracks at first glance, but give it a second look and you begin to sense that this truck belongs to a different rhythm of life. It represents an era when Britain was rebuilding itself with limited resources, endless determination, and machines that mirrored the spirit of ordinary working people. This truck was not created to be impressive. It was created to be useful. And that is exactly why it became unforgettable. When you walk around the LC5, its design feels almost like a handshake from the past. The rounded bonnet, clean lines, and tall windows give it a calm, confident expression, as if it has seen everything from quiet mornings on country lanes to hectic afternoons delivering goods in crowded towns. It stands there without arrogance, yet it carries itself with a quiet dignity. And that dignity becomes even more interesting once you learn that this truck had not one, but two very different hearts beating under its metal skin. The first of those hearts was a small 1.48-liter petrol engine. It came from earlier Morris models and was intentionally simple, almost Spartan. With 35 to 40 horsepower and around 88 to 95 newton meters of torque, or 65 to 70 pound-feet, it was never going to win a race. But that was never its purpose. This engine was the mechanical equivalent of an old-fashioned handyman, not very strong, not particularly fast, but always willing to show up and do whatever job you asked of it. It worked for small-town councils, farm owners, bakers, carpenters, anyone who needed reliability more than power. If you kept it fed with petrol and oil, it would run, even if the body around it started to rust. But while the 1.48-liter engine handled the humble tasks, the second option, the 2.2-liter petrol engine, gave the LC5 an entirely different personality. Producing 48 to 55 horsepower and around 145 newton meters of torque, roughly 107 pound-feet, this engine transformed the truck from a patient helper into a genuine working machine. Suddenly, the LC5 could climb hills with confidence, tow heavier loads, and handle its rated 1,500-kilogram payload, or approximately 3,307 pounds, without sounding like it was begging for mercy. Drivers who got the 2.2-liter version often joked that it felt like the LC5 had finally discovered its backbone. These two engines made the LC5 feel almost like two different trucks hiding behind the same face. One version was gentle, modest, and predictable. The other was lively, purposeful, and ready to prove itself. And that contrast is what makes the LC5 truly fascinating today. It offered customers the choice between endurance and strength at a time when choices were limited. Beyond the engines, the driving experience of the LC5 was shaped by its practical engineering. The cab sat high enough to give the driver a commanding view of narrow streets and farm tracks, but not so high that you felt detached from the road. The gear lever was long and mechanical, giving you a direct connection to the truck's mood on any given day. When the LC5 was empty, it moved with a light, almost playful attitude. Loaded, it became firm and steady, concentrating on its work like a reliable colleague who rolls up their sleeves and gets things done. The suspension was straightforward, leaf springs designed for durability more than comfort. But instead of rattling the driver endlessly, the LC5 offered a surprisingly balanced ride for its size. You could feel the road, yes, but not in a way that punished you. It felt like the truck was communicating honestly, telling you exactly what the wheels were doing and what the road ahead might bring. The fuel economy reflected the personality of each engine. The smaller 1.48-liter motor used around 14 to 16 liters per 100 kilometers, or roughly 14 to 17 miles per gallon. The larger 2.2-liter engine, despite its extra power, was often slightly more efficient in real working conditions thanks to its stronger low-speed pull, usually around 13 to 15 liters per 100 kilometers, or about 15 to 18 miles per gallon. For small businesses trying to manage tight post-war budgets, this difference mattered. What also mattered was reliability. The LC5 did not demand complicated tools or experienced technicians. Most routine repairs could be done with basic equipment, and many owners performed maintenance themselves. In villages where repair shops were rare, A truck that could be fixed in a shed or out in a field was more than useful. It was essential. Of course, the LC5 had limitations. The 1.48-liter version struggled on steep inclines and needed plenty of patience when fully loaded. The 2.2-liter engine, while much stronger, could heat up if pushed too hard on long climbs. The cab was narrow, with very little room for extra equipment or passengers, and long journeys could become tiring. But these drawbacks never defined the truck. What defined it was its willingness to work, every hour, every day, with the kind of persistence that leaves a mark on the people who relied on it. Today, seeing a restored LC5 is like discovering a living fragment of history. The polished wood of the cargo bed, the rounded cab painted in bright colors, the simplicity of its mechanical parts. It all reminds you of a time when machines were built with clarity of purpose. You can imagine it delivering bread at dawn, carrying tools to a construction site, or transporting produce from a farm to a local market. You can almost hear the soft hum of the engine as it rolls through a sleepy village, doing its part to keep life moving. The Morris-Commercial LC5 may not be famous worldwide, but it earned its legacy in a much more meaningful way by serving real people in real places without complaint and without drama. It was a truck that made everyday life possible, one delivery, one journey, one load at a time. If you enjoy discovering machines that helped build the world we live in, make sure to subscribe. There are many more stories waiting to be told. And each one brings us closer to the remarkable history of transportation.